Welcome to the Workbench and welcome to another episode of Wheels Wings TV. Today we have the mostly new 1/72nd scale TBM Avenger from Sword. Let's have a look. So first sprue, we got our fuselage halves, nicely engraved panel lines, and some raised features as necessary. Not a lot of rivets, but representative of the fasteners around the engine cowling and the oil tank. Nice big slot for our wings. Yeah. Bomb bay is molded closed and there are no internal pieces, so if you wanted some inner detail you're going to have to scratch build that yourself. Basic cockpit floor, propeller, some seats, reasonable representation of the radial engine. Paint that up, that'll look just fine. Maybe add a little bit of wiring for your ignition harness. Cowl ring. Of course, TBM3s had the extra, or had intakes top and bottom. TBF only had the one on the top. This empty spot here would have been the radar pod that was hung under the wing. I had to steal that for my Ferry Barracuda kit, so we will have to source a replacement for that when we get to building this one. Some more seats, other little bits and pieces. I believe this is a searchlight pod. Bulkhead behind the pilot. Reasonable representation of the instrument panel. A few other panels, radios perhaps. Different type of radar pod. Sword cater to, I believe, 3 different variants on the same sprues, so there'll be a lot of parts you're not necessarily going to use. And various bits for the wheel wells. A little bit of detail molded into the fuselage halves, some ejector pins and some mostly out of the way places, but a couple that look like they might need to be taken care of. Yeah. Hole for the props a little out of center there, but that's easily fixed. Not too bad. Second sprue, we've got our left and right upper and lower wing halves. Tail planes, our landing gear legs, our main wheels. It's a nice attempt at a diamond tread pattern, but unfortunately that's let down with a very heavy mold line around the circumference. This is of course a short run kit, so that goes to be expected. Tail wheel, tail hook, pitot tube. Got our little bits and pieces, another seat, more nice panel lines. You know, for being a short run kit, all the panel lines are consistent and relatively sharp. You don't get it some places really deep and other places really shallow. They're very consistent across the entire model. And yeah, a few raised ejector pins. Might have to take care of those so we get a good fit between the upper and lower halves of the wings and the tail planes. And some mold lines on the landing gear legs that we'll have to take care of. But overall, not too bad. And the last sprue is our clear parts. Like I said, they cater to, I believe, 3 different variants, maybe 4, of this post-war Avenger. So we have our windshield and pilot's canopy, the center sections, and then 3 different rearmost sections covering what would have been the ball turret on a wartime Avenger, as well as for the that searchlight pod, and the windows for the lower crew compartment and the door. Quite clear, nicely defined framing, which is always helpful for masking. Not a lot of distortions and imperfections in the clear. You don't see a lot of waviness. Everything is nice and smooth, a good shine on it. This piece here is maybe a little frosty, but everything else looks quite good. And usual, a bit of distortion going right from the top down, but from the side on, you're not going to see every bit of detail in the cockpit, but you're not going to be able to ignore it either, so you want to put a little bit of effort into the cockpit. Yeah, not too bad. And our decals. These are printed by TechMod for Sword. And of course, the whole reason we're working on this one, we've got Royal Canadian Navy markings. Of course, the Royal Canadian Navy operated the Avenger after the end of the Second World War. Decals are nice and glossy. Colors are good. Registration is good. Not a lot of extra clear film around the edges. I mean, a fair amount on the big Navy insignias, but it's either that or put every letter on by itself. Reasonable attempt at the Royal Canadian Navy sugar leaf insignia. Not perfect, but better than some other companies. A lot of companies just use the modern style Canadian maple leaf. They did miss the stem of the leaf, but that's not a huge problem. At least the overall looks more like a Navy leaf than other kits I've seen. And of course we got a Royal Navy one as well. Standard roundel. Wing walks, I'd be tempted to paint those instead of a decal. A couple little Hamilton Standard logos for the prop. Basic little decal sheet, but look very good and look a lot better than other TechMod decals I've dealt with. Arma Hobby is also using these newer TechMod decals, and they are really, really nice. And the instructions, just laser printed on 8.5 by 11, but it gets the job done. A little bit of a historical blurb on the Avenger, especially, emphasizing the post-war use. Made by Sword in the Czech Republic. Now, because the parts are not numbered on the sprues, we've got a nice big sprue map with parts that aren't going to be used called out here. Usual symbol legend and suggested colors. So we've got instrument panel going into the main pilot's floor, C control column, calling out for the switches. And they're saying the whole cockpit here is bronze green with black consoles. Bulkhead, other pieces. And of course, nice little side view here, so you can see how things, everything's going to be at perfect 90-degree angles. being short run, you probably have to do a little bit of tidying up on edges to make sure everything's going to go together perfectly square. Possibly even mock this up into 1/2 of the fuselage just so everything's going to fit. Calling out the fuselage halves, the tail wheel with its bulkhead, the engine, various seats. Engine goes in, cockpit goes in, tail wheel goes in, another little bulkhead goes in, halves go together. No, of course, they don't really give you an order of operations here, but obviously you're going to be halves go together with the engine, then your cowling is going to go on. These, okay, they show some clear parts going from the inside, others going from the outside, so you might want to test fit those. If the fit's not good, it might be better to install them from the inside and glue them a little bit proud and then sand them back rather than try to force it in and then have it fall inside and have to fish it out. Our tailplane halves going together and then going in. We have a nice big slot, unlike some short run kits where this would just be a butt join. So that shouldn't give you too much effort. Simple landing gear legs with the doors and the wheel. Nice frontal view and side view here for correct orientation on the tailplanes, how your landing gear should sit. We got our inner part of the wheel well sandwiched between our upper and lower wing halves. Wings go in, once again, nice big tabs, so they're going to be a little bit more secure than a butt join, but you'd still want to make sure that those are going to be nice and level. Propeller. And depending on your paint scheme, you've got your searchlight here, or the radar dome underneath mounted on the bomb bay. We've got our American radar pod that would go under the wing as well. Got our pitot tube on the wingtip. So info, I'm assuming they're referring to, you know, whichever paint scheme you're going to be going. Now, because they don't have any little holes flashed over, you do have to get the ruler out and do some measuring for exact locations of all these hard points. So pay attention there. This is not a shake and bake kit by any stretch. And last but not least, put on your clear parts, dependent on which variant, and you're all done. And then color schemes. The one we want to do, Royal Canadian Navy 881 Squadron, circa 1955. So this probably would have been flying off of HMCS Magnificent, the Maggie, or possibly out of Shearwater, Nova Scotia. Navy 310, painted in the standard light gray and dark gray, as the Royal Canadian Navy stipulated. These are basically really close equivalents to Royal Air Force medium sea gray and extra dark sea gray. Black propeller, yellow tips, nothing too fancy there. And a Royal Navy aircraft in overall gloss sea blue. So, not too bad. Now, of the 3 different Avenger kits, 2 of them contain Canadian markings, 72130, the one we just looked at, as well as 72131, which contains markings for an earlier Canadian Avenger circa 1951, with the earlier code letter style and slightly different roundels. once again, also medium sea gray over extra dark sea gray. So you've got options to add to your collection of Royal Canadian Navy aircraft. So, the new 1/72nd scale TBM-3AS Avengers from Sword. Not a bad looking kit, all things considered. It is short run, so it is going to take a little bit of work to put together. So, not recommended as your very first model, but if you're experienced with short run kits, this one shouldn't offer much of a challenge. And nice to see somebody branching out with the variants. Up till now, the only really good Avenger in 72nd scale was the Hasegawa kit. However, out of the box, you are limited to the wartime TBF and TBMs with the ball turret at the back of the canopy. So now we finally have an out-of-the-box post-war Avenger. And it comes with Canadian decals. So what more could you want? We will be doing a full build video of this kit, and we will be doing ours in the markings of the newly restored TBM Avenger at the Canadian Warplane Museum. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that one. Thank you very much. We'll catch you next time.